Tower of Terror is the greatest thrill ride Disney has ever conceived, and is easily the world's best drop tower. Disney has built this attraction at the Florida Resort, California Resort, Paris Resort, and Tokyo Resorts. While the theming and ride system differs between them, all four feature an immersive story and a fantastic drop sequence. But which version is the best between the originals and the rethemed Guardians of the Galaxy version? Find out in this review of Tower of Terror. Disney's Hollywood Studios is a park rich with e-ticket attractions, but it wasn't always this way. This Florida park originally opened in 1989, but it has severe lack of attractions. In 1994, the park saw its first major expansion with Sunset Boulevard and was anchored by the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. Development for a drop tower at a Disney park goes back to the 1980s. Disneyland Paris considered adding a free-fall style attraction Frontierland named Geyser Mountain, but the plan was ultimately scrapped. Disney revitalized the concept for their Florida resort and decided to give it a horror theme. The ride cost roughly $140 million, but it would go on to be one of the most popular and iconic Disney attractions of all time. Heck, the ride even got its own Disney movie. Tower of Terror would be so successful that it would be added to 3 of their other parks as well. Disney's California Adventure received a similarly themed tower in 2004 to boost attendance at the new and struggling park. Walt Disney Studios in Paris received the same ride in 2007 for similar reasons. Tokyo Disney Sea also received their own version of Tower of Terror in 2006, but would feature an original theme. The premise for the 3 outside of Tokyo is that guests are visiting the dilapidated Hollywood Tower Hotel. The hotel was highly popular until a tragic accident in the 1930s when a lightning bolt strikes the tower, causing all 5 occupants in the elevator and an entire wing of the building to disappear. Guests become stars of an episode of The Twilight Zone as they board an ominous maintenance service elevator. Tokyo was unfamiliar with The Twilight Zone, so their version got an original story. An explorer named Harrison Hightower steals a tribe's protective idol in Shiriki Otundu. When he returned home to store the idol in his penthouse, the elevator dropped 13 stories. Hightower disappeared, but the idol remained. I think this is the best story of the Tower of Terrors. 3 of the 4 towers have retained their original themes. However, California's tower is transformed in a Guardians of the Galaxy mission breakout in 2017 to coincide with the release of the second Guardians of the Galaxy film. In this version, the Collector has captured the Guardians of the Galaxy. Rocket escapes and asks guests to board a gantry lift to blow up the building's generator to release the Guardians and all the other creatures held within. I slightly prefer the other 2 stories, but this one is still well themed and executed. There have been whispers that the other 2 Twilight Zone Tower of Terrors could be rethemed as well, so Disney no longer has to pay for the licensing for the Twilight Zone IP, but nothing has been confirmed. And I like how you have a few different versions currently out there, because it makes each one stand out more. The themes are the biggest differences between the towers, but the ride system also differs. All 4 feature a high-speed Otis elevator. The motors can accelerate the elevator faster than gravity and reach max speeds of 39 miles per hour or 63 kilometers per hour. The original in Florida features 4 shafts for loading. The ride starts in the lift shaft before the automated guided vehicle leaves the lift shaft and goes into the 5th dimension room. The vehicle then rolls into one of 2 drop shafts for the thrilling portion of the ride. The other 3 versions feature a simplified ride system. The entire sequence takes place in a single elevator shaft. There are 3 shafts. Each one can operate independently, which helps minimize downtime because each shaft can be serviced separately if issues arise. Each shaft operates with 2 separate vehicles. The load platforms are stacked on top of each other, so while one vehicle is experiencing the ride sequence, the other can be loaded. The cars move in and out of the elevator shaft at the start and end of the ride. Today, each car holds 21 riders. You have 3 rows, each seating 7 riders. Florida's version originally held 8 riders in the back row. From 1994 until 2002, the ride operated with lap bars. I never experienced this version of Tower of Terror, but the airtime was even more pronounced from those who experienced it. Each row had a shared lap bar, so it would stop at the largest rider, so smaller guests would get copious amounts of airtime and tons of room to experience it. In 2002, the Florida version was retrofit with individual lap belts for each guest. The California and Paris ones opened with and still have the same restraints. The Tokyo version features a more extensive seatbelt, featuring both a lap belt component and a shoulder strap. The latter is more restrictive, but the belt still has just enough slack for you to experience the airtime. Florida's Tower of Terror stands 199 feet or 61 meters tall, and the others are similarly tall. The ride is deliberately 1 foot shorter than 200 feet, so it wouldn't need a height beacon at the Florida park. The facade looks amazing. It perfectly balances the feel of an upscale hotel that has also been charred and neglected. The queue line then routes riders through a lushly landscaped courtyard before dumping them off in a deliberately dirty room. It's quite the sight seeing lavish furniture covered in cobwebs. The pre-show room then takes place in a detailed library, and then you load in this dark and ominous boiler room. This tower also received a fancy projection mapping effect for Walt Disney World's anniversary. I think the effects look super cool, but they don't really match the theme of the tower, if that makes sense. They look more cartoony than the horror vibe the tower's going for. The original version in California and Paris had similarly nice facades and interiors. The external queue area was just a sea of switchbacks on these ones though. One weird thing with the Paris one is that the back looks really naked. Unlike the Florida and California parks, where the attraction was placed on the park's perimeter, Paris's is located smack dab in the center of the park. Another neat thing with the Florida one is that the building can be seen from Epcot, so the back of the tower was designed to blend in with the Moroccan area of World Showcase. That just shows Disney's attention to detail. Tokyo's looks like a lavish apartment building, and it's an architectural marvel. The inside is filled with fancy artifacts from Hightower's expeditions. I also love how this one features a chilling projection mapped lightning bolt effect at night whenever an elevator drops. It looks really cool, and I wish we saw something like that in the other versions. The Guardians of the Galaxy retheme in California is polarizing. I think the tower looks pretty ugly by day, to be honest. However, it looks really cool at night with all the multicolored lights. This one has the best interior though. I am a Marvel nerd, so I'm like a kid in a candy shop looking at all the Marvel characters and props. Each attraction is one of the most popular rides in their respective parks. It is common to have wait times over an hour for each one. The best way to skip the line for each is to grab a FastPass or Lightning Lane reservation, which should get you on the attraction in less than 15 minutes. Alternatively, you can head there first, especially in the Florida one because most people head to Galaxy's Edge. One thing to watch out for prior to your visit is if Tower of Terror is running at full capacity or not. I know the one in Florida was operating with just one drop shaft for a while, which significantly ate into the ride's hourly capacity. If Tower of Terror doesn't have all the drop shafts available, you want to hit this ride early before the line backs up. The pre-show for the Twilight Zone themed towers always scared me as a kid. It's why I never rode Tower of Terror until I was an adult. It is a very dark theme for a Disney park, seeing 5 people killed and turned into ghosts. And the fact you're watching a little television set just adds to the creep factor in my opinion. I think the pre-shows for the other 2 versions are more exciting though. Tokyo's is set around a Shiriki idol and this window with a colorful projection mapping effect. The narration is understandably entirely in Japanese, but it was clear what was going on with the story. But my favorite version is Guardians. The rocket animatronic looks amazing, and the pre-show has the irreverent humor the Guardians films are known for. When you reach the load platform, you're assigned one of 3 rows. You can request the front if you're shorter and want the unobstructed view, but the tiered seating makes the visuals just as good in all rows for me. I also like how the bellhops in Tower of Terror are allowed to get into the experience. They usually recite the safety spiel without a smile and a deadpan tone. It's one of the few Disney rides where cast members are not required to be smiling at all times. Before delving into the specific theming and drop sequences on each tower, I want to discuss the sensations this drop tower delivers. I think the drops feel comparable across all 4 versions. The ride sequence consists of rapid descents and ascents. The drop shaft is 13 stories tall. You have some partial drops and at least one full drop each ride. No matter how far you drop, you get good floater airtime paired with a wonderful stomach dropping sensation. But the longest drop is the highlight of the ride for me. Then there are also points where the elevator rapidly ascends the tower and immediately drops back down. This fluid motion delivers oodles of sustained airtime. I think this part is better than most S&S space shots on its own. Most of the ride takes place in near total darkness, which boosts the stomach dropping sensation for me because you cannot tell how far you're going to drop. But the elevator doors at the top open a few times to offer an aerial view of the park. It is obstructed by the Hollywood Tower sign, but it's still nice. The elevator shaft can also rumble at points, which helps build anticipation for the next plunge. Tower of Terror's theming is what separates it from the other drop towers out there, but the sensations are among the best of any drop tower too. This ride gives more airtime than any other drop tower between the power of each drop and the fact you drop multiple times each ride. Most large-scale drop towers only drop you once per ride. Plus, you have just a seatbelt and very little to hold on to. And because it's a Disney park, you can take all your belongings with you, so there's something inherently enjoyable seeing bags at your feet levitate in the air or your Mickey ears soaring above your lap. The Florida version begins with the iconic Twilight Zone theme, and Ron Sterling's narration continues throughout the experience. You then ascend to the first show scene. You see ghosts from the pre-show flickering with lightning ahead of you. They're standing in a hotel hallway, and it's brilliantly using the Pepper's ghost effect. Then the entire hallway turns into a star field, and the window at the end shatters. It reinforces the horror vibe of the pre-show. You then ascend another level, and when the door opens, your elevator travels forwards out of the shaft and enters the fifth dimension as you pass by these giant clocks and eyeballs. It's a nice physical set you don't get on the others. The star field ahead of you then parts, opening the way to the drop shaft. Whether you start by going up or down is random. There are a few preset drop profiles the ride's computer can randomly select. Each one guarantees at least one full drop, but the rest of the ride is filled with a mishmash of rapid ascents and descents. Some smaller ones and some larger ones. And you may even get a surprise video screen at the bottom of the drop shaft as well. The variation adds a lot of re-rideability to the experience, but it wasn't always this way. For the ride's first 2 years, it only offered one big drop. In 1996, the ride was upgraded to feature 2 full drops, and it was advertised as twice the fright. In 1999, the ride system was upgraded again to feature faster accelerations and roughly 30% more time in the drop shaft. The randomized drop sequence has been in place ever since 2003. California ran a preset drop sequence for its entire life as the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, and Paris had the same program from 2007 until 2019. This version began by raising guests to the first show scene. A mirror shows the guests, but lightning flickers and the guests are turned into blue ghosts and eventually disappear. It's a fun scene I wish the Florida version had. You then ascend higher and experience a second show scene. It starts like Florida's first one with a ghostly family in a hallway, but after the hallway turns into a starfield, you see an elevator at the end of the hallway. That elevator suddenly drops, and right on cue, riders also begin their drop sequence. The drop sequence never varied, but it was excellent. You started with a drop from roughly halfway up the tower. You then ascend to the top, the doors would open, you'd get this little fake-out drop plunging 1 story down, before dropping all the way back down the shaft. You'd then rapidly rise up and down the tower in total darkness, getting lots of airtime on the way. The elevator would then head to the top one last time and start rumbling. You'd then plummet all the way to the bottom. This would end the drop sequence. I haven't experienced Paris' tower since it was rebranded as the New Dimension of Chills in late 2019. This version features 3 new stories, each one featuring the little girl who disappears in the pre-show. The ride also features new drop sequences to add more variety to the experience. The Tokyo version is the same ride program as the old versions in California and Paris. The 2 show scenes leading up to the drops are very different though. The first one features Shariki magically coming to life, throwing Hightower into an elevator, and dropping him to his death. It's a pretty brutal scene, but it fits perfectly in a ride themed to a haunted elevator. The second scene is the first scene from the California and Paris ones, except the ghostly blue light is replaced with green lighting for Shariki. Lastly, you have Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. I think this is the most intense of the towers. This one has a much more chaotic feel. Rather than starting with some slow show scenes, you immediately rocket halfway up the tower at a brisk rate. There, you encounter a screen that you return to several times throughout the experience. This screen shows the Guardians being freed and fighting multiple creatures. The visuals are crisp and capture the feel of a Guardians film. And even during these show scenes, the elevator never stops moving. It just keeps bobbing up and down, which amplifies the action. I have heard this motion was toned down from when the ride originally opened though. Then the drop sequence around it is reminiscent of Florida with a seemingly random series of ascents and descents. I think you get more time for thrills in this one. The ride also takes place to one of 6 songs: I Want You Back, Hit Me With Your Best Shot, Give Up the Funk, Free Ride, Burning Love, and Born to Be Wild. Which song you get is random, and it governs which visuals you see during your experience. It gives you a lot of incentive to keep trying for different songs. The music is goofy, but it gives the ride a dance party atmosphere. Guardians also features a Halloween overlay called Monsters After Dark. This story is a sequel to the original events of Mission Breakout, where Groot was left behind, so riders return to the monster-infested tower to rescue him. The overall ride sequence is similar, but you get a song exclusive to the attraction called Monsters After Dark. Guardians of the Galaxy is my favorite of the Tower of Terrors. While I slightly prefer the custom stories that Disney devised for the other ones, this one is almost as good. The reason I place it at the top is because of the superior ride program. The whole ride is more action-packed start to finish, with the elevator's more erratic motions and the always awesome drop sequence. It's just also a ton of fun rocking out to songs while dropping 13 stories. I think Tokyo has the best theme. This one is a little weaker in the thrill department though, because it's the only one with that shoulder belt. It doesn't have a tremendous impact in the experience, but you do notice it. I think Florida has the best show elements, especially because the ride system is more complex, incorporating that 5th dimension scene. So what would I rate Tower of Terror and Guardians of the Galaxy? All iterations of this Disney attraction earn a perfect 10 out of 10. This is the world's best drop tower. The drop sequence alone would make it arguably the best drop tower out there, because you get multiple sizable drops and lots of airtime with just a seatbelt. But when you add in an immersive story that spans the queue line, pre-show, and ride itself, you have a truly world-class attraction. This is not only one of the best attractions at any Disney park, but I think it's better than most roller coasters out there. These attractions come darn close to supplanting coasters in my top 25. So those are my thoughts on every version of Tower of Terror at the Disney parks. What are your thoughts on this popular attraction? Which version and theme do you like best? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canobie Coaster. Thanks for watching.